To the NuriEdge Podcast, where neuroscience meets leadership and real world performance. I'm your host, Lacey Matthews, along with Mariana Merritt. And today we're joined by Keith Bogen. Keith is an HR consultant, speaker, and networking expert with over 20 years in the field. He holds dual master's degrees and both SPHR, and I'm going to butcher this one, the SHRM-SCP certification. He founded Wine and Dine Networking in 2003, growing it from 5 people to over 12,000 HR professionals across 50 states and 40 countries. Hey, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. By the way, not to call you out on early, but you did butcher it, but you reversed them. That's okay.
Oh, man.
It's SHRM, SCP, and SPHR. Don't worry, it's all alphabet soup and it's garbage. Don't worry about it. I mean, no insult to the certifications, but it's alphabet soup.
I appreciate. I'm also a kind of a certificate junkie. So if I put all the letters behind them,
Yeah.
they halfway through the alphabet, but they don't necessarily always mean anything.
I totally get it.
Well, let's jump in. So you built something as human-centered as Wine and Dine Networking across 20 years. We would love to hear kind of what you've seen change and how people actually connect and maybe some of the things that we've lost along.
Well, what I've seen change might sound very repetitive because we have a habit of each generation picking on the next one. So the current older generation is always, quite frankly, whining about the younger generation and its obsession with technology and with smartphones and not necessarily interacting with each other, as opposed to uh, not necessarily talking face to face, but through a screen. I have this battle with my sons all the time. They're 27 and 24, and in varying degrees. I mean, they've gotten pretty good about it, but they're still that generation is more driven by technology. So it's very interesting. Wine and Dine Networking is now in 19 different cities, and every time we pop up in a new city, there's just this legion of people that goes, "I am so grateful that you're here. I need some. We don't have anything where we can really just talk to each other face to face." So even though I haven't been tracking it, I would say that there's been a trend of less and less in-person events. And of the ones that actually exist, they're not necessarily places where you meet other people because, and this is the genesis of Wine and Dine, so many events are driven by a speaker and a presentation and what have you. So even the ones that have been happening for a long time, you're not really meeting other people. So that's, I think it was accentuated by the pandemic, and that's been talked about ad infinitum. And the generation that went into the pandemic in the first place was driven by technology. So,
Yeah.
Wine and Dine itself, honestly, we have some trouble drawing on the younger crowd. And when we talk about succession planning, that's not good. We have a challenge there to address.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Definitely in the mental health community, we think about a lot the loneliness and disconnect that the younger generation is feeling. And I think what you're tapping into that I want to poke more at is what organizations are missing about the impact of that um, within their workforce. I think that there's a real need for organizations to recognize that that can't be something that the older crowd just says like they should do better. What are your thoughts there?
Well, let's be fair. Not even the older crowd does that particularly well. The older crowd during the pandemic discovered that being on a screen and sitting on a couch while they're at work events or otherwise, other networking opportunities was easier. So a lot of the older crowd, and I'm part of that, but a lot of that crowd said, "Oh, I guess this is a better way of doing it." So they're just as guilty, if not more so, than the younger crowd. The younger crowd has an excuse. They were brought up that way. The older crowd found a new habit and said, "This is cool. I don't have to leave my house." Not good, but I think there's more of a challenge there. Uh, the it's in some ways it's our fault the way we taught the younger crowd. The world we brought them up in with the technology that was available and all. It's not a blame thing, but
Yeah.
they had a comfort level from day one. They were born with devices in their hands.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There are differences for sure.
Yeah.
And I like that you're calling out, like, it's not a blame. And there are pros and cons, right? I mean, it is more time effective to take meetings without having to travel back and forth to meetings. There are some pros for organizations and for people. And so I think there's space in the conversation to think about, like, why are humans naturally drawn to like this? But then the challenge is, what do we lose if we're doing too much of that and not enough connecting there?
And I may be the wrong person to ask that question because although I do plenty of this, obviously we're doing it right now. Uh, I do plenty of online stuff, but I'm out amongst people so often. I never had a time in my life other than during the pandemic itself where I wasn't out with people just
Mm.
by nature. But even before I created Wine and Dine, I was always very social, very much out there with people. Uh, but let me rephrase that. After high school, I was a whole different person before I graduated high school. But that's a different podcast. Uh, I would say that. So I have trouble relating at times to the concept that somebody was social at one point and then decided social meant being on a screen at another point because I never did that. I've adjusted to the screen, but I'd rather be sitting in front of you right.
I like it. I like it. Well, maybe let me take us down the path of real mentorship, coaching, development, the things that you've seen throughout your career impact people. What changes do you see, not just in the person who gets access to that, but how does that kind of affect downstream, upstream? What happens to an ecosystem when that, whether in person or maybe still virtually, the mentorship and coaching is offered for people's development?
So it's very interesting the path that my career takes, and I think a lot of people forget that. Oh yeah, Keith Bogen. Well, he's just a wine and dine guy. He builds the communities and all that. But I actually am an HR practitioner aside from that, and I've been doing it more on. Now we call it fractional. We used to call that part time, whatever. So I'm more of a fractional offering, if you will, but that's by design in some cases. And a lot of the assignments I've had lately have been in more mentorship capacity, teaching other people how to do what they're supposed to be doing, which is, I'm loving that. But I particularly love is watching the eyes open up with the new knowledge. But part of that is, especially the younger people, oh, I'll just shoot them an email to explain that, or I'll leave a form to explain that. And I'm like, or you could pick up a phone. Or you might even consider picking up your butt and walking across the room, something like that. And when they actually do it, and of course, I say it a little bit nicer than that, but when they actually do that and they realize that if I had sent an email, that might have not have come across in the way that I was just able to impart because I had like facial expressions and things like that.
Absolutely.
And everybody gets that when you make them go through it, they understand it. But so few people are made to go through that. So sometimes you got to push them, squeeze them through that doorway, if you will.
That makes total sense of just like sometimes you got to lead the horse to water. Um, I I'm curious if you think about like the future of work. You were just touching on this, especially with kind of AI entering coaching and development. What role do you think technology should play? And maybe like where is it that we think like we know that technology should never replace that human experience?
You're asking that question of the guy who really enjoyed the movie Terminator. Actually, that movie was really, really impactful on me. I hate to say it, but I was in college when that movie came out. And oh man, it really, it didn't occur to me that, here we are all these years later, we'd be facing exactly that in some ways. Not exactly that, but a world where we talked about artificial intelligence in that movie. And then suddenly that term has come back in the last 2 or 3 years. So I think that's part of what's driving the paranoia around AI, besides the insane social media blitz about it. Um, I've said this about technological advancement, and many people I know have said this about technological advancement in my whole career, and that is the first time we were faced with technological advancement that would take away jobs. Well, that was really in the 1880s during the Industrial Revolution. And then Henry Ford and the assembly line. Fast forward to things like the fax machine and, oh yeah, by the internet and things like that. Uh, to me, each time we've gone through that, the people who embrace the technology and understand how to use it to be more productive and more satisfied themselves prosper. And the ones who sit there and whine and bitch and moan about it because they're afraid it's going to take their job suffer, because they're not adjusting. They're not seeing it as an agent. And that's one of our favorite words nowadays is agent. AI is artificial, but it's not very intelligent. It's a baby. It's a child, and it's not growing very quickly either. It's amassing a lot of knowledge. But there are, if you don't have the right social skills, you can't put the knowledge together to do anything of real impact. Sure, it can reformat resumes and it can, create whole websites. Please check out my website. That I used AI to build it, for crying out loud. I don't know anything about technology, but you can do things with it. But it's a tool, like a calculator, like a fax machine. Ooh, fax machine. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. That's outdated. Never mind. There's so many tools out there. This is just the next set of tools, and people who are using it who are embracing it are prospering greatly. And there's a lot of people being left behind because they're paranoid, and the paranoia is being driven, in my opinion, by social media.
Yeah, there's so much kind of influence and very difficult to nail down kind of fear shifting in the ways that we are learning about new technologies. I think when we chatted before, you had a great example, and I probably won't get it perfectly, but of race cars and the evolution in engines, and essentially, whether or not you embrace the new engine makes or breaks whether or not you cross a finish line. I can't if I still wanted to stick to a horse drawn buggy, I'm not gonna be able to commute to work in the time I need. I gotta use the tools as they evolve in order to keep serving the forward motion, and I think that really illustrated it well. You can hold on to the past and technology
Mhm.
we can all say is tried and true, but if we can't begin using the tools that go forward, we get left.
And I am just as guilty, I think, as anyone else in some ways. My favorite example is if I get a check that's written in more than $100, I won't use my phone to deposit it. Now, using your phone everybody uses that now to deposit checks. I'm still paranoid, so I'll go to the bank and do it at the bank. Most of the time I embrace it. I have these little weird faux pas in my life that's one of my things, and I'm proud of them. I have all sorts of weird faux pas. So, it's just one of those things. If I get like I just started with a new client a few weeks ago, first paycheck was pretty sizable. No way in hell am I using my phone to do that. Sorry.
It goes back to the foundations of our nervous system, though. Like our body recognizes threats and fears. And slowly, as we are adopting new technologies, those things, we start recognizing, like, okay, maybe I can
Mhm.
incrementally let go of that fear. And so it's
With ATMs, I was very slow to start using them. I actually remember when ATMs first came out. No comments about my age, please. Um, and I do remember that, and I was one of those people who, I don't know, let me talk to a human and I did that for a little while. Now I don't like to talk to the bank tellers, so, yeah. I haven't liked talking to bank tellers for probably 40 years.
yeah, yeah. I'll do anything to dodge it if I can. I don't know.
Exactly.
But it's a really fascinating as just a reflection of the way that we we embrace things, iteratively. Like we move towards them. We have curiosity. We build in a little bit. We check that our fears are still managed. Um, and so I think that, it's important for us as humans to sort of manage our dysregulation bit by bit. We don't want to, like, it's too hard to take on everything at once. And slowly by nature break that down. And I think it's just really fascinating the ways that we digest what we can take on in a moment and then maybe take another step. Maybe a year from now, you'll feel great about digesting or depositing a larger check. But it's taking things
It's
on as we can and as we're able to, which I think is super. Yeah. Well, I want to bring us back together and thank you so much for your time, Keith. I do think we have 14 more episodes we could make of things we are just getting started.
I'll be there for everyone.
But we look forward to. We love it. So, well, thank you for joining us on the NuriEdge podcast. For those of you listening, if anything in this conversation resonated with you or made you think a little deeper or reinforce something you perhaps are already sensing, we'd love to hear from you. You can connect with Keith and with us at the NuriEdge on LinkedIn both and share your thoughts so we can continue conversations together. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the invitation. I thoroughly enjoyed being here.
Awesome.